Thank you, everybody, for having me here today. I'm really excited to present the final CMDF document. As Eric mentioned, today is the vote is to adopt the CMDF as the official policy document for the management of the capital district and the mall itself. And I think that's exciting because for a long time, there hasn't necessarily been this guidance. And I think what our team has accomplished with many of you in this room and certainly with the voice of the community is what we see as a very rigorous and thoughtful document that outlines a respectful vision for the future. There's a number of updates. I'm not going to read every single one of these, but we have been working with project partners, with the capital staff on a number of updates since we last discussed. Additionally, what you will be voting on today has changed a little bit from the 90% draft that we sort of voted on, and it will have a few more minor revisions that have already been given to our team as part of the final document comments. All of that is centered around understanding the historic legacy of the Capitol and what it has meant to the state. And, you know, I think for our team, it has been an honor to sort of think about the legacy that we will be leaving on the Capitol and how this could guide decision-making for many, many years to come. And we don't take that lightly. And so, you know, this document really is meant to be the next generation of decisions, a plan for the 21st century. I think that's really how we positioned every thought as we thought about this design. I want to start by sort of outlining, you know, I think our general call, our sort of fundamental call to action. We started with the legacy of Cass Gilbert, the remarkable sort of physical framework. You can look out this window and see the sort of embrace of the city, the state, the landscape. And we don't take that lightly. We understand that that is the historic context. But when you start to read some of the text, the writing around that was crafted around this time and around the design, a lot of it is about embracing the people. And I think that's fundamental. And so as we think about the purpose of the Capitol, it is for the people, and it is for the everyday experience, the big day experience. And it's a place of voice, a place of democracy. And I think fundamental to the CMDF is that democratic process. Planning, design, when done right, is inherently a democratic process. And we're very excited to say this is really one of the most extensive public engagement campaigns that I have been a part of in my career. And the fact that we reached 14,000 people in approximately 6 months is quite remarkable. I think our local partners and Zane Associates have a lot of credit to that, as well as many of you that helped get the word out. But this, I think, is a very representative document of a broad range, geographically and demographically, of the people of Minnesota. We had a number of large and small events that really form the way that we thought about this. And that really all comes together around three themes of vitality, inclusivity, and diversity, with the purpose of being a more welcoming place for more Minnesotans. And that is a fundamental drumbeat throughout this entire document, is that we are looking to create a place that is more welcoming for the people. Again, it all centers around the everyday, the ability for the people that work on this campus to walk outside, have a functional, safe, comfortable place to call their place of business, as well as the big day, place where we can celebrate, where we can come together, whether it's large events that happen regularly or whether it's special events that happen just every so often. So very excited to outline the CMDF for you all today. Before we get into the content of the actual document, I do want to take a moment to sort of frame how this fits into the context of historic preservation and transformation. Our team was tasked with giving two deliverables, the Cultural Landscape Report and the Capitol Mall Design Framework. Both of those documents happened and were generated in parallel. The CLR influenced the Capitol Mall Design Framework. The Cultural Landscape Report is a technical document. It is not a planning document. It is not a design. It is a technical document that outlines the historic considerations of a place. And it has influenced the Capitol Mall Design Framework throughout this entire process. Specific to that is the core definition of the Secretary of Interior's office. And what our cultural landscape report calls out is that the mall should be treated in a manner of rehabilitation. And what rehabilitation means is that it is a place that has had changes over time, that has a new use associated with it, that needs to adopt to be culturally relevant, to be of the time. And so every decision that we have made has used the Secretary of Interior's recommendations and definitions and outlines to ensure that we are respecting the historic past. We have documented all of the historic resources and considerations on the mall itself. We have understood the times and the changes that have happened both within the period of significance and outside of the period of significance. And every aspect of the Capital Mall design framework relates back to the historic resources that are outlined in the cultural landscape report. And that is very critical to understand that the purpose of the CMDF is to provide a framework policy so that decisions and actions on the mall do not necessarily need to be relitigated as you move forward. And so this process has uncovered those historic resources, has discussed those historic resources, and has outlined a very relevant and historically respectful master plan that can be used moving forward. I want to relate this to what it means to work in our nation's most cherished historic monument. So the Minnesota Capitol Mall is a national treasure. It's a beautiful building, it's a beautiful campus. How does this relate to other projects? Simone, you said you're going to be visiting DC later today, and so you'll see a couple of familiar pictures that maybe you'll see later. Our team has extensive work in our nation's capital. We're actually still working on the United States Capitol. I think I said that in our interview. We're still working on that, not even close to being done. But over the course of time, we've also worked on a number of projects that are now built and finished. The Lincoln Memorial was functionally obsolete. The infrastructure didn't work. The accessibility had faltered. Trees had died. Our team was hired to lead a rehabilitation that took, again, a functionally obsolete yet historic monument and transformed it into something that was rehabilitated to modern standards. That included introducing new security features, new accessibility features, new trees where there were not historically trees, new walkways where there were not historically walkways. The intention there is to respect the history of the place, but understand that it needs to be brought up to 21st century standards. Another project, the U.S. Capitol, very similar in context to the Minnesota State Capitol, had a huge sprawling parking lot right behind it. Our team, in concert with Callison RTKL, was hired by the architect of the Capitol to insert a new visitor center into a historic campus to replace the parking lot and to replace the progression from the outside into the building. And within that context, very similar to what the Cultural Landscape Report and the CMDF have done, is it looked at the evolution of this campus over time. These districts are not static. They change over time. When you look to the original design intent to the last time it was touched, lots of things happen in between there. The intent is to really focus on what makes the district sort of whole, what are the historic intentions behind it. And this new design respects the legacy of the open glades, the large mature trees, but again, installs new pathways, new water features where there were not water features, new trees where there were not trees, all with the intention of respecting the historic legacy, but bringing it up to modern standards. And so how does that relate to the Minnesota State Capitol and the document that is being approved today? Cass Gilbert laid out a remarkable vision for a sort of building up on a hill, a historic legacy that really can still be seen today. But over the course of time, this district has evolved. This district has changed. It's very easy to look at the historic imagery and to understand how quickly and how dynamic this district has been. When you look at the historic design and planning documents, you understand that there was a myriad of intents around how this district has been managed. And so what we're doing here today is just part of that historic legacy, respecting a resource that still exists and thinking about how we cherish it for decades and for decades to come. And so going back to that CLR, the period plan, which is outlined in the cultural landscape report, is 1962. Our team has documented everything that was there in 1962. However, things have already changed since then. And the CLR itself clearly outlines that the period of significance was defined by the evolution of the campus over time. There have even been decisions since that time around how the building has been restored, the landscape around the building, that doesn't relate to the period of significance and does not outline interventions that are exactly what it was in 1962. And so that the point is that this is an important time to set the table for what our policy document is that guides decisions moving forward. And the CMDF is that document that outlines a vision that is more welcoming to more Minnesotans. And so the CMDF as a document is really centered around three scales: the area, the campus, and the mall. And each one of those has a different level of detail associated with it. It's clearly outlined. The illustrative plans and the diagrams that you see in the document span the entire district and call for a place that helps set the table for the placement of new buildings, the arrangement of parking and functionality of circulation, large-scale landscape treatments, maintenance obligations and directives, all with the intention, again, of creating a more welcoming place for more Minnesotans. As you zoom in and scale to the upper and lower malls, it paints a picture of a place that respects the historic legacy of the mall itself, the axial relationship between the castle and the surrounding city, but offers a unique series of interventions that both celebrate that history, but also bring in accessibility, inclusivity, new programmatic functions, new frameworks for thinking about commemorative works. So again, that every single decision that you make on a daily basis doesn't necessarily have to go through the process of understanding how it fits into that context. The CMDF now is that policy document. It provides visuals that demonstrate what it means to think about rearranging the amount of space that we give over to cars, creating more comfortable streetscape environments. Thinking about how festivals and activities like the marathon fit into this historic landscape. Painting new pictures for the evolution of Cass Gilbert from a sort of, I'll call it native hill, into a thriving public space that can be multi-generational. A vision for the upper mall that provides ample shade and tree canopy to provide for human comfort, while still framing and respecting the historic axial relationships and view corridors from the streets. A seasonal design that takes into consideration accessibility and comfort throughout all seasons. A place that truly celebrates Minnesota's cultural and landscape diversity through new pollinator and ethnobotanic expressions in the lower mall. A place of vitality that sets frameworks for the placement of new buildings, new mobility hubs, new public spaces at the University and Rice intersection. And finally, places that are the commons, a place for the people to come together and feel represented. This is a visual of our design for the Martin Luther King Boulevard Park, which transforms it from a simple vehicular street into a dynamic and flexible public plaza. And so the CMDF has 8 fundamental ideas. Those are all born from the comprehensive plan. That's the document that started it all. Our team then went into a deep dive on the technical and functional requirements that exist, a comprehensive analysis that ultimately led to those 3 sort of thematic principles, the vitality, diversity, and inclusivity. From there, those 8 bold ideas, and I think when we first presented to you, it was 10, some of them overlap, so there's been some reimagining of those. And those principles really do formulate the capital mall framework. In the document, each one of these is outlined to provide the sort of high-level intent behind it, but then also to give some design recommendations about how those things come to fruition. This was not a plan to design every single detail of the mall itself, design every single detail for decisions and projects that happen for years and decades to come, but rather to give a policy framework for how those things should be considered. And so elements like amenity guidelines for users, locations of new things like visitor centers and the amenities that those would need to be. Reinvigorating nodes, stitching the capital district back into the city. What our team has given is a framework for thinking about the investment and building placement in strategic nodal locations around the campus, and outlining the types of spaces and amenities that each one of those nodes would need, so that people that work and live in around this district have places to gather, places to have their daily needs met. One of the other big ideas that I think we honed in on right away was reinforcing and right-sizing roads with trees. There is a tremendous opportunity to think about increased tree canopy across this entire district and really take back space that has been given over to vehicles and really focus on creating a pedestrian environment that is comfortable while still respecting the historic legacy and the views of the Capitol itself. Within this section, we also outline functionality issues around circulation, parking, view corridors. We've talked about within the document the need to think about topography in a strategic way to sculpt it for new accessibility paths and security measures. Within that, we have guidelines on technical details around security walls, while also thinking strategically around regrading of the mall itself to provide those paths for accessibility. We introduced new strategies to represent Minnesota's cultural diversity and ecological variety by really reconsidering the way that commemorative works are placed within the campus, not necessarily dictating the types of commemorative works, but how you think about placement and the evaluation of those elements. The vision for MLK, as I mentioned before, is outlined both from a technical standpoint and from a visual standpoint, also giving case studies from around the country about how that could possibly play out. Celebrating water throughout all seasons, thinking strategically about stormwater management as well as seasonal interventions and outlining the ways that those can happen. Creating new planting strategies that provide for seasonal expression and visual interest while also being sustainable and culturally relevant. And then creating multi-generational spaces that allow for the people that call this neighborhood home to actually have a remarkable public ground for them to enjoy. Outlining Cass Gilbert Park from a user program standpoint, a partnership opportunity standpoint, and a physical layout standpoint. All of those big ideas and the visions that are outlined in the CMDF are organized in a document. And I want to be clear, this is not the Sasaki plan. This is not our opinion. This is a document and a plan guidance that is based on a rigorous process, our team's deep experience in these types of projects, and most importantly, community engagement. The fact that there were 14,000 touch points that influence this project means that it truly is a representation of what people want to see this capital be like. It is a rigorous document. It's almost 200 pages long and is organized in a way that allows users to understand why decisions were made, what those decisions are, and what those decisions can mean if they are in fact made. It provides guidance on how we all work together, how you all work together, outlining the partnerships that could exist, the roles and responsibilities and considerations to sort of clean up some of the considerations so that we all understand our seat at the table. It provides a consideration on phasing, and not only from a physical standpoint, but also from a technical standpoint. What are the cost considerations that we might think about? What are the dependencies that might need to be considered? Who are the partners that need to be involved in projects that are outlined in the CMDF? And so not only is this a beautiful vision, but it's also a strategic roadmap for decision-making over time. And it clearly outlines a series of next steps that we encourage you all to take, and we hope that you take, because we truly do believe in the plan that's been outlined today. And so at the end of the day, this sets up and provides a framework for long-range planning. It guides maintenance practices and operations practices. It assists in policy formations. It provides a tool for evaluating proposals, and it should set funding priorities. That is the purpose of the CMDF. And so what does this mean now, and what does this mean for future generations? Again, the evolution of the campus is a remarkable century-old conversation. But you have action, immediate action that is being talked about. How do we actually use funds that are available now? And so the CMDF outlined the first phase investment that has evolved over time. I believe Eric's going to give an update there. But at the end of the day, the CMDF truly does outline a vision for the future that I don't necessarily think needs to be relitigated every time a decision comes up, but rather sets the tone for decision-making moving forward, all with the intention of creating a more welcoming place for more Minnesotans. And I'm excited to stand here today. I think our entire team, which includes roughly 15, 20 people that have worked on this project, is incredibly proud of the work that we have done. We think the vision that is set forth is truly remarkable. And I'm proud to say, as of last week, this project actually won the highest award for the state of Colorado American Society of Landscape Architects. And so that's very exciting to say that even before we're done, the industry is understanding that this is a solid piece of work. And so thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to the discussion.